you cannot openly and actively be cheering, as a politician at least, for these things to fail. That, I think, is just incredibly lowbrow.
I think it's the bottoming out of the Democratic Party. That moment will be looked at as the bottom. Cyan, any thoughts?
I think it's incredibly lowbrow. I agree with Chamath, and I think it's just so distasteful for, a public official to do something like that, especially for an American company. And if you hear the people cheering in the background, it's obvious that there's a base that supports this, and that frightens me even more, because he's saying these things because his constituents believe it. Right. And, a politician says these things because they think it's going to motivate them to vote for them in the future. And that really frightens me, that we are riling people up to cheer on the destruction of American company and possibly go out and burn cars. I think
that's a really good point, Cyan. Yeah, because whenever you incite like this kind of aggressiveness, and by the way, both sides do it, you get a contingent who takes it too far. Freeberg, maybe we wrap up on this and then we can jump back to Wiz. Sorry for the diversion.
I think the Democratic Party has split into two parties. There's the Democratic Party with beliefs, and there's the Democratic Party without beliefs. I think that the Democratic Party with beliefs is the one that's very far left, and their beliefs are fundamentally rooted in concepts of socialism, Marxism. Yes. And they're very clear about those beliefs, that traditional power structures need to be dismantled and assets and influence need to be commonly redistributed. The rest of the Democratic Party, which people call the moderate part of the party, actually don't really know what their beliefs are. When you talk to anyone in the Republican Party in a leadership position, you hear very clearly what their beliefs are.
I think there's like 9 or 10 trillion that has to get refinanced. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, look, I thought that when rates were low, you're supposed to term out rates.
Exactly.
And instead, the Treasury for the past few years has pulled rates in. And I think part of that was to keep rates lower, that they changed the issuance schedule when rates moved back up towards 5%. I have maintained that policy, but I'm maintaining it because, let's go back to David's question of when are we going to see the results from this, getting the government spending under control? And I don't think the markets recognize it yet.
Okay, translated for Chamath.
So he's saying a couple things. He has inherited a problem that he hasn't quite yet changed. What is that problem? That problem is that when rates are low, you want to borrow for as long as possible, right? You don't want to borrow for the shortest amount of time. And now that rates are high, you're in this difficult position where you have to refinance all of it at a much higher rate. I think that there's been a fundamental disconnect and break from the Fed and the rest of Treasury and the government. And I think that Scott was very clear, like he views that as an independent organization and it should continue that way.